Hello, everyone, and to lecture 7 for History 2013, U.S. History to 1865. Today, we're going to be talking about creating Republican governments. Remember that Republican, when we use it here, is the type of government, not the political party Republican, okay? So just keep that in mind as we go forward. Generally, this week, we're going to be talking about the years 1776 to 1790. And today, we only have two topics to look at: the revolutionary change and the post-war landscape. So we all know, obviously, America succeeds in winning the Revolutionary War. And so what happens when we're done? We won the war, now what we've got left. So to take a step, we have to figure out a government, right? We just got rid of a government, and now we're anarchy, right? So now we got to put something together. So what do our founders and our framers go back and look at in order to start putting together that government? They're going to look at the governments of Greece and Rome, and those have Republican, right? The type of government, republic. They have ties there that we see, and even into our modern day. So, since the last time we probably covered this was in middle school for most people, I'm just going to go over it really quickly. What our founders and framers are looking at is ancient texts that talk about the best way to govern a people, right? So over here on the left, we have the four types of Greek government. That's monarchy, oligarchy, tyranny, and democracy. And so we'll start there. They're the oldest ones. Obviously, we know what a monarchy is. A monarchy is rule by a single leader, right? A king or a queen, and it's passed down hereditarily, right? So within a family, that's where all of your rulers come from. An oligarchy is a government by the few. It's a council of a few people who make the decisions for the entire government. Sometimes you know who those people are, sometimes you don't. A tyranny is a person, a singular person, who kind of rules unchecked by anyone and rules until they're either die until their death or deposed, right? And then finally, democracy is going to be ruled by everyone voting, everyone having an equal say in the government. And now, the way that these all play out in Greece is not the same way that we play out when we might think of them today. For instance, monarchy in Greece didn't really function the same way as the monarchies we might be familiar with. And it also did not last for very long. It was only a few years that Greece actually, any part of Greece was actually under a monarchy. Oligarchy is probably the most common one for Greece. Sparta is a big example of this. They successfully are governed by an oligarchy for their entirety of a civilization. Tyranny in Greece at this time does not necessarily mean a bad thing. A tyrant is someone who they would put in control when decisions needed to be made. And there was no really discussion that needed to happen. So if they were under attack, or if some big problem was facing the society, they would elect a tyrant. So that way you have that person in charge to just make decisions as they come up. And finally, democracy, as we all know from Athens, the vote of a citizen, right? Each citizen has an equal vote, an equal say, equal opportunity into the government. On the right here, we have the Roman setup. Now, Rome has its own problems, its own changes from monarchy to empire and to all of that. But within that structure, we have some time period where they have a kind of semi democratic emperor kind of sort of situation here. And they are where we get the Senate from, right? You can see it here on the infographic. But they had three bodies, three political offices to help make decisions. And that's the consuls, who were the people in charge, essentially the emperor, the king or queen. This is before Caesar, so keep that in mind. The Senate, which was the aristocratic branch, is where your noblemen. This is where laws were passed and recommended, and the actions recommended to the consuls. And the Assembly was where all the lower class of people were able to kind of do the same thing as the Senate. But you see how it goes up, right? With the most power being with the consuls and the least power being with the assembly, right? So with the founders and the framers, this is a more specific look at the Rome's government structure. Um, what the founders are going to do is they're going to kind of take things from both of these types of sets of government and make what we have today. Essentially, we're going to have a republic that exists and is made up of an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch. They're each going to be in charge of portions of the overall governing of society, and then in turn be controlled by the people, right? And so Rome, so the founders and the framers are looking at this and they're trying to find, how do we not have a tyrant? How do we not have another King George III? And this is what they come up with. And it's a very balanced way of governing, but it's an experiment. It had never been done before. So we're all unsure at this point in time how it works out, what goes on from here. And that ties into our post-war landscape here. We end up with this governing document based off of those principles that we just looked at, called the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation are not strong. But it's our first government document. Basically, it says, yeah, okay, all 13 states, we're gonna like work together, but we're each gonna have our own money, and we're each going to have our own laws, and we're each going to have our own prices of things, and we're each going to have our own way of handling things. And so the Articles of Confederation does not set us up for a lot of uniformity, a lot of unitedness, right? It's a long way from being a United States of America, right? And so the Articles of Confederation are there, but they have a lot of problems. And you can see it here with this political cartoon here. Articles of Confederation, this big ship, and it's being attacked by these big waves, right? No national court system. There's no overarching legal system or judicial system that will help and govern all of the states equally. There's no power to enforce treaties. So they had a federal government, but it couldn't do anything. If there were treaties that needed to be signed, it needed to be kicked down and approved by the states before it could go back. There's no power to amass an army. So if you needed to combat a threat, it was up to the states if they decided that they thought it was credible or they wanted to send people. No power to collect taxes. So the federal government is in charge of paying the debts from the Revolutionary War, but then they have no money and they have no way to get money from the states. So it's a good first try for having come out of nothing, but it's not something that will set us up for a lot of good long-term success. And so that is why next week in the next lecture, we end up looking at a completely different government structure that looks more like, oops, wrong, looks more like this setup than it does what we just see on that sinking ship. So that's going to be the end of lecture 7 today. A lot of this is covered in detail again in the textbook. So if you have any questions, make sure you read it and then let me know if you have any questions or if you'd like to see anything up close. As always, post something in the question form or send me an email. That's it for lecture 7. I'll see you guys back here at lecture 8.